Welcome back. This is lesson 5 of the Dynamic WordPress course for beginners. In our previous lesson, we talked about concepts such as posts, pages, custom post types, taxonomies, terms, tags, and all these other concepts that help you to understand just how you can add content to your website and also group those contents accordingly. Now, in this lesson, we're also going to be talking about concepts that are complementary to what we discussed in the previous lesson, which is meta boxes. We'll also talk about meta fields, meta tags. We'll then discuss dynamic tags. And then if we have some time left, we'll then discuss options, pages, all of these concepts that can help you to add data, specific data to your WordPress website so that you work smartly and dynamically. Now let's delve into the very first concept of meta boxes. To understand why we even need meta boxes, let's talk about something that can happen in your life as a web developer. Now, assume that you've built this website, and assume that this website is built for a fictional client called Fiction, and this website is no longer yours but belongs to another client. At some point in the future, this client may say, hey, I need to be able to make changes inside of this website. And you could tell the client, hey, why don't you come back here to the dashboard where we have posts and begin to add the posts that you want to your website. And the client can say, well, that's great, but I want to be able to make changes to some aspects of my homepage. For example, I want to be able to change what is here and what is here and, some other aspects of this homepage right here. Generally speaking, you don't want to give access to your editor so that the client can come inside of here and make all of these changes, because that will cause some problems in the future, most likely, because they could come here, they could mistakenly delete something, mess things up, and go like, hey, you didn't get things working right. And you would go like, well, I did get things working all right. I gave you access to it. You messed things up. And there's this friction that happens between the client and the web developer. What is the smart way to do this? For many people, they choose to use meta boxes. And that brings us to the very first reason for meta boxes. Now, you could have an idea of what a meta box is from what we just discussed, right? Because a meta box is a group of meta fields where a person can come in to the back end here, right here inside of the WordPress dashboard, make changes to those fields and have those changes show in the front end. So let's talk about the first concept of meta boxes by coming inside of the dashboard here, coming back to JetEngine. Remember, we installed JetEngine, the plugin from Crocoblock that helps us do just that. JetEngine also helps us to create meta boxes. We can come inside of here and select meta boxes. Once we click on that, we're met with this page here that says no meta boxes found, and that is true. We've not created any meta boxes on this website, so let's create one. We'll come right here to add new, and we can add our first meta box. Inside of here, we want to give this meta box a name. Remember, because I said that a meta box is a group of meta field, it's just a box containing inside of it meta fields, we can give this a name that will tell what all of these fields will do. In this case, we want to say that this will manage the homepage details, for example, right? So if we type in here, homepage details, right there, then inside of here, I can come down here to where you have meta box 4. Now remember, because of the fact that we want the client to manage these two areas inside of the front end here, which is technically our homepage, we can come back here and select what it is for. You have 3 options: posts, taxonomy, user. Well, we don't have page here. Why? Because if you were part of our previous lesson, if you watched that video, you will understand that posts and pages are essentially the same thing, separated by post types. So if you select here what the meta box is for and you select posts, you have then the ability to select the post type down here, which you have here, enable for post types. Now, where you have edit meta box link, you have the ability to toggle this on if you want a person from where the person is editing the fields inside of that meta box. You want the person to quickly come to this page here. You can select this so that there is an edit meta box link inside of that page. But we don't care about that. We also don't want to hide the meta fields name right here. We're fine with this. We can come down here to where we have enable for post types, and inside of here is where we select pages. So we select pages as the post type, and we just don't want this to appear on all pages. we're dealing specifically with our home page. So we can add a new condition here and point us to that home page. Here, we don't see include pages, but we see include post, and we know post and pages are essentially the same. So here inside of post, we want to select here the page of home page. So once we type in home page, let's just search by home and see what it comes up with. Here is home page. We're going to select that and we can move ahead to the next step. The next step now is to enter meta fields that will be part of that meta box. For now, let's click on add meta box and see what we've created so far. Once we click on add meta box, the button here changes to update in case we make changes to any meta fields right here. But let's see if this appears inside of our pages. So we're going to come inside of all pages and edit the home page right here, which is the page on which we have assigned that meta box. Does it appear right here? No, nothing, absolutely nothing appears right here. And why? Because of the fact that we have not yet added any meta fields to that meta box. A meta box is essentially useless unless there are meta fields inside of it. Does that make sense? So, question, what is a meta field? Let's see if we come inside of meta boxes here and just click on new meta field and try to add a new meta field. We come here to where we have label and we can give this meta field a name. What is the name we want to call this? It will depend on what we know about meta fields. A meta field is a single input inside of a meta box that helps you collect data and attach that data to a meta key. Now, if that's confusing, we can very easily demonstrate that by simply typing in a name or a label for that our meta field. Now, come back to the front end. Let's remind ourselves of why we need to create a meta field. We have two places here that need to be dynamically changed in the back end, and so that such changes in the back end will reflect in the front end. So here, for the first one here, we can choose to call this hero title. We know that this is the hero section as we discussed in lesson 2. And we also know that this is the title for that hero section. So we can come inside of here, back to meta boxes. We can just come back here and type in hero section title. Something like that is all right. And once we type it inside of there, once we click out of that label field, we see a name, ID, or key is automatically generated for us. Now, this concept is important. And we've seen very many people confuse these concepts together. They don't mean the same thing. I repeat, a meta box contains a group of meta fields. A meta field is an input that links your value to your meta key. So what is your meta key? Your meta key is what gets stored in the database. It's a key that holds the value that you add to that meta field. Let's make it make sense. If you select here, of course, a meta key has already been generated for you, so this is fine. As you can see here, you do not need spaces inside of this field because spaces will not work. You need a string of characters without spaces, all right? And now remember, your meta key is the same as your meta key name or your meta key ID, all right? Now, once you're done with that, let's leave everything else as is. We're going to come back to it in a bit. We're just going to come here to update meta box. We're going to update that meta box. We're going to come back to the home page. Inside of the edit page for the home page, we want to see our meta box show up because we said it cannot show up unless we have a meta key inside of it, right? So let's refresh that edit page right there and let's see what shows up right here. Now, inside of this meta box, you have all of your meta fields. Right now, there is just one meta field right here. You also have the label, hero section title right there. And then you have the name or the key or the ID, which is called hero section title. You can very easily click to copy it right there. But we're going to talk about that in a bit. For now, you see you have the ability to add the contents for that particular meta field. Now, the content you add there is the value that will be stored in the database. It will technically be linked to the meta key name that you find here. Does this make sense? We're going to make it make more sense as we go on. So let's come back inside of meta boxes right now and see other options we have when we create a meta box. You have the object type here. You have 4 options: field, tab, accordion, endpoint, I wouldn't cover the other three. We're going to focus today on field. Sometime in the future, we could talk about the other concepts. They're bordering on intermediate to advanced. Now, inside of field type right here, you can select the field type. As you can see, that was a text field type that we have right here. This is a text field type. You can simply add text inside of that field. You can make changes to this by modifying this. You can change this to a date field. You can change this to a time field. You can change this to a date and time field. You have text area field, which is basically just like the text field, but you can add a little more text because it's a bigger box. Then you have the WYSIWYG field here, which is what you see is what you get. That's what WYSIWYG means, right? And that simply means that you can add formatted text. In other words, you can highlight some part of the text, make it bold, make some italic and stuff like that. That really is a WYSIWYG field. I would implore you to go through all of these fields, add these fields to different pages, see how these fields function, play around with it, and let me know what you find. But let me quickly brush through the rest of the field options we have here. The switcher field here is simply a yes or no field. Basically, that's what it is. It's a switcher field. When you add that, when you toggle it on, it's saying true. When you toggle it off, it's saying false. You then have the checkbox field here, which is just basically a list of options which you can check. So you can check multiple options if you so desire. Then you have the icon picker field. That is self-explanatory. That's just a field that helps you pick icons. Then you have the media field, which you can use to store things like PDFs or maybe music or even a picture, whatever you want to store, just one value inside of that field. As opposed to the gallery field, which below here is a field for you to store multiple pictures all at once. You have here a radio field, which helps you have multiple options, just like the select field, but you can only choose one option at a time. Then you have the repeater field here, which is basically bordering on intermediate to advanced concepts, but can help you give your clients some flexibility to add different fields inside of that one field. Don't worry, we're going to talk about that sometime in the future. Then you have the select field here. It's more like a radio field, except that you can only see one item at a time. Right below it, you have the number field. It's like the text field, but it only takes in numbers. You also have the color picker field. It's self-explanatory. Then you have the post field, which helps you select from a list of posts stored inside of your website. And by post, I mean whatever, custom post types, pages, whatever. Then you finally have HTML field, which basically just helps you collect code inside of that field. Now, that's basically brushing through all of these fields for you, just for you to understand what these fields mean. But most of the time, in fact, 80% of the time, you will only need the text and the text area field for yourself. Now, inside of description, you can type in a description for that field so that whoever is filling the field knows what it is going to affect in the front end. This is your choice, whether you want to add a description or not. Here, where you have field width, you can specify if you want it to span the entire width. Right here, it's spanning 100% of the meta box. If you want it to span only half, you can select here 50% if you so desire, or if you want it to take a third, you can select 33.3%. You get the idea, right? Now, inside of character limit here, you can specify the maximum number of characters. I would assume that in the front end here, this should have maybe a maximum of 30 characters so that this doesn't break into 3 lines and ruin the design, right? So if you want the client to modify this, you could specify a character limit. In my case here, I could say I want a 30 character limit right here, which will also count spaces, mind you. Then inside of default value, you can type in what you have by default inside of here, just so that the client understands what they would have or what they are expected to fill inside of that field. Is required is a way to ask whether you want that field to compulsorily be filled every time a person comes to edit that page. So if you toggle on is required and there is nothing inside of here, you're not going to be allowed to save this page unless something is inside of here. Select that if you so desire. I'm going to toggle that off for now. For quick edit support, I'm going to explain that to you by just coming inside of all pages right here. Once you select all pages, and for, let's say, the home page, you click on quick edit, you have this number of fields inside of here that you can very easily modify and click on update. That's basically how quick edit works. So if you want this field, which you're creating right now, to be inside of that quick edit interface right here, you can toggle on quick edit support and it's going to be inside of there. Let's toggle it on. Let's click on update meta field. Let's come back here. Let's refresh the pages right here. And let's click on quick edit and see what happens. If we click on quick edit here, you see right here that you have hero section title, and you can modify that right there. You can see that's the default value right there. And if you click on update, it basically updates that page along with that meta field. Okay. That's how it works. We can come back here inside of meta boxes. We can toggle on revision support inside of here, and that will basically just support the default backup mechanism of WordPress. What that means is that WordPress would basically be taking some sort of backups for you when you're editing your posts, like your pages or your regular posts on your WordPress site. So if you maybe want to return to something that it was maybe 2 days ago, you can very easily use revisions to go back in time, right? Now, this is something that you may want to activate for that meta field so that it is also part of the backups that is consistently being taken. If you want that to happen, definitely toggle on revision supports right here. Showing REST API, I'm not going to talk about this because this is bordering on intermediate to advanced concepts. And finally, conditional logic 2, we're going to leave that for now because that will just help you to do things that you do not need for now. Okay, now that we're done with explaining all of this, we can create a new meta field. We'll be a lot faster now because the next meta field we want to create is for this next section or this next area right here. This next area right here is for the hero description. So we're going to come inside of here and create a new meta field. We're going to call that hero section description. Once we type that in and we click out of it, it automatically creates a name or ID or key for us. Once we're done with that, we can see the field type is text. We can come down here and enable quick edit support if we so desire. And once we come back up here and we click on update meta box, that is done. Now, let me explain one last concept as it relates to meta boxes so that you understand technically how things are working in the back end. Remember, the idea of this beginner course is to enable you to develop a technical mind. So sometimes when we're talking about technical concepts, you need to understand them because they're going to be foundational to your understanding of intermediate to advanced concepts in the future. Now, what happens when you create a meta field? It basically assigns that meta field, just like we did right here, to a particular page as you set it inside of your conditions right here. So you can assign it to a particular page, or if you want it to apply to all pages, just leave the conditions empty and it will apply to all the pages that you select here. All of the post types you select inside of here. Now, when that happens, you still need to go inside of each of these pages, such as where you come inside of the home page right here. Let's just refresh to see the up-to-date fields inside of our homepage details. When we come down here, we see homepage details. We have here the section title. We also have the description. Right now, it's a text. We can come back here to meta boxes. Let's change that to a text area because it's a little bit more information than just a single line of text. When you select that, we click on update meta box. We come back inside of edit homepage. We refresh that. I'm speeding through because I expect you to understand this by now. And you have the hero description right here that can take in more texts, right? Understood. Great. We know that. This makes sense, doesn't it? Good. Now, what really happens when you come inside of each of these fields here and fill in some data? Now, I mentioned to you that the meta key associated with that meta field will store some value, the value you add inside of here into the database. So every single time you create a new post and you fill in these details right here, it creates new database entries. And what do we know about adding so much data into the database? That at some point in the future, your site can slow down because of the problems with actually getting such data from the database when it is actually large. To ensure that you don't have junk data stored inside of your database, data that you no longer use. Let's say sometime in the future, the client says, hey, you know what? Just manage this site yourself. I don't want to have to make changes to this. And you go, okay, well, I mean, right now we don't anymore need this meta box. We can delete this meta box right now. What will you do? You're going to come back inside of here. Let's come back inside of JetEngine. You're going to come inside of meta boxes. When you click on that, you're going to see that meta box right there. And you're going to click on delete. When you click on delete, it's going to ask, please confirm meta box deletion. And you're going to say delete meta box. And it's going to go away. It's going to delete that meta box. But what it just deleted was the interface. the meta box which you have right here, the interface, not the data you added in each individual instance. All of the data you added in all of the individual instance will still be somewhere inside of your database, meaning you've not actually gotten rid of the data. What you got rid of was the interface. So in order to ensure that the data is also gone when you remove any meta box, you need to come back inside of the meta box settings right here and toggle on delete metadata right here. That is what this toggle does. It ensures that whenever in the future that you delete your meta box, it also goes inside of the database and says, hey, all of the meta fields for which data was entered through me, I need all of you gone because I was the channel through which you came in here. I'm going away with you. That's basically what this does, right? So what's my advice? Always keep delete metadata on if you want this to happen. So once you toggle that on, click on update meta box and you're good to go. Now that we're done with setting up our meta box right here, we can come back inside of our edit page and make changes to our hero section and our hero section description. Let's just zoom in a little bit so that we have things looking all right for us. Inside of hero section title right here, instead of web developer and designer, I want that to say WordPress developer and educator. So WordPress dev and educator. Something like that is all right. Inside of hero description, section description, we can come here. Let's just grab what we have inside of here. And I want to paste this inside of here. And I want to say, hi, my name is Fik, but you can also call me Sean. Contact me for your web development needs. I am available. Something like that is okay. And once I'm done, I click on save. So we've made small changes to what we should have inside of our hero section title and our hero section description, and the page is very much updated. We're good to go. We can come to the front end right here and let's refresh and see the changes being made. Oops, nothing changes right here. And why? Because of the fact that we've not linked this to this. We've not yet done that linking right now. We need to do so. So let's come back inside of our edit page. We're just going to refresh this so that we have all the up-to-date data ready to go for us. And we're going to come inside of here because what we intend to do right now is to connect this to this and also connect this to this so that once the change is made in the back end, it makes changes right here in the front end. So let's do that. And to introduce you to that, I'm going to introduce you to another concept, a concept that is called dynamic tags. Now, don't confuse this with tags, which we talked about in the previous lesson. It's not the same thing, essentially. Dynamic tags are placeholders for data that can be fetched from somewhere else. So let's talk about how we can make use of dynamic tags in this case. If you don't understand what that means, you're going to understand it when we begin to make use of it. If you come to a widget such as this one right here, now if we select that heading widget and we want to make changes to it, we can very easily do so statically right here. And that will make us static developers, but we want to be dynamic WordPress developers, right? So meaning that we need to be able to fetch values dynamically and make changes in one place and it changes somewhere else. To do that, we're going to come inside of here and select dynamic tags. As you can see, that's dynamic tags right there. And what it does is that it connects a custom field, which is also called a meta field in the back end. That's just one use of a dynamic tag. So let's select here. Let's leave all these other aspects for now and just select custom field. Now, when you select that, you can see inside of the settings for that particular custom field that you have the ability to select from the list of the custom fields on your website. Now, on the pages right here, you see you have hero section title, hero section description. These two meta fields which we created in the back end. Now this is very good because we can very easily now click on hero section title and it fetches that title for us. As you can see, now it fetches in WordPress dev and educator. This is very, very nice. Very exciting, not so. We can click on this next widget right here just below and we see here we can add also default static values, but we can also select the dynamic tag option right here, and under the provision that JetEngine gives us, we can then select a custom field again and select that second custom field. Keep in mind that the dynamic tag function is a provision of Elementor, but for you to be able to make use of it, you see down here, you need to upgrade to Elementor Pro to make use of it. But again, Crocoblock to the rescue, they created the opportunity for us to make use of the same dynamic tags. So we're going to come here to where we have custom field here on the JetEngine. And when we click on custom field, we can select on the field here, we can select here, hero section description. Once we select that, it also fetches the description for us. As you can see, it has fetched the description for us, and this is absolutely great. Now we can click on publish, and when we publish that, we can come to the front end right here. We can refresh this, and what do we have now? We have right here the title and the description very easily fetched for us. Now you have a homework for you to do. I need you to create a meta field for this image and put that image in the back end so that someone can make the change to that image, and it also changes right here in the front end. I want you to do that and let me know what you find in the comment section below. All right, so let's move on now to the very last of the concepts we're going to discuss inside of this lesson, and that concept is called options pages. If this name does not sound familiar, I'm going to tell you that it actually should, because we talked a little bit about this in lesson 1 if you paid attention. Come back here to your dashboard, and let's just come back to the main dashboard. Remember when we were talking about WordPress and having to make some changes that will affect everywhere on the website? We referred at some point to the settings page right here. Let's just go to one of the settings pages, like the general page right here. Once we click on that, look inside of the URL. What do you have here? WP admin, which is your dashboard. And after that, you see options general. Great. Now, if you click on writing, what do you have here? Look inside of the URL. Options writing. What does that mean? It means that every single one of these settings page are actually options pages. So it means you know what options pages are, right? Options pages are pages on your WordPress website that can help you to make changes to specific data that will affect everywhere on your WordPress website. I mentioned to you, any change you make inside of an options page such as this will affect every single aspect of your WordPress website. Can you create custom options pages for yourself? Absolutely. JetEngine also gives you the ability to do this. You can come inside of JetEngine here and come inside of options pages. And right here, we can create a new options page. And what will we need an options page for? Let's come back to the front end right here, and we notice that there's some data that will repeat on not just this homepage, but on multiple of such pages. It will not make sense for us to create a meta box or a meta field in the back end for each of these pages and then begin to change it on each of these pages everywhere on the website. Because when there is another change in the future, then you have to go to each of those pages and change it once again. So for this kind of situation, what do you make use of? You make use of an options page. An options page will help you to make change in one place that will affect everywhere else on your website. So let's see an example. If we come down here to the footer, we see we have a little description of the website right here. And right now we have nowhere to add the description of this website. All we have is a tagline that comes along with our website, but we need a proper description that's going to be appearing everywhere on the website. Like in the footer, we could also have this appear in the about page and stuff like that. So we need an options page for this. To be able to create those custom options pages, we come back inside of options pages right here inside of JetEngine, and we add a new options page. For this one, we're just going to call the options page a name. We could give it a name such as additional site settings, something like that. Good. Now, once we give it the name and we click out of that box, what do we see? We have a page slug automatically generated. We also have this name translated inside of the menu name right here. And why do we have a menu name option? Because it's an options page and we're going to have that show on our WordPress menu if we so desire. Now, if we want that in our WordPress menu, we can select the menu position right here. Down here where you have menu position, you can pick a menu position right here. So let's say you select here under first separator, is going to be just below the first separator you see here. As you can see, there is a gap between the dashboard and post. That's where the first separator exists. So if you select inside of here first separator, you expect that to appear inside of the first separator section right there. If you select posts, you know it's going to appear just below the posts inside of the menu item right here. So basically you can select the position of this menu item. But if you want this to be a child, such as when you come inside of here to settings and you have all of these pages, all of these are options pages under one main parent called settings, you can very easily select the parent page right here. In my case, I like to do that. So I'll come here to parent page and I want to select settings as the parent page. That way we have to come inside of settings and we'll find our options page right there. You can also select the field storage type. I will not delve into this. It's bordering on intermediate to advanced concept, but this is an excellent innovation by Crocoblock. We'll talk about that sometime in the future. As is the case for custom fields, you can hide the field names if you so desire, but I like to leave them showing, so that's okay. Now you can begin to add all of the fields that will be part of that options page, just like you were doing when you were creating a custom meta field, right? So let's do that. Let's create a field that will collect site description. So we're just going to type in the site description. Once we type that in, we click out of it, it automatically creates a name or ID or key for us. Once we do that, we can come here to field type. We want to select text area because it's a little bit of text right there. And once we select that, we can select here inside of the description, we could say this will appear site-wide. Something like that should be fine. And once we finish typing that in, we can come back here, we can close that out, we can click on add page. Once we do, this whole thing is going to refresh. We can come down here to settings and we can see additional site settings as a new menu item under the parent page of settings. Once we click on that, we're inside a new options page created for us by JetEngine. And this is very, very nice. And inside of site description, we can very easily, if we want to, let's come back here. We can type in what our site description is going to be. Inside of here, we can just paste in this site description before it, just so we can understand that this is a different block of text. Let's just type in here this and put in hyphen, just like that, just so we can know the difference between what is the new data and the old one right there. Once we type that inside of there, we can click on save. Now, how do we apply what is inside of our options page right here to where it should be inside of our footer right here? It's very easy, right? We're just going to come inside of edit with Jet plugins. We see it right there inside of this bar at the very top, and we're going to select the site-wide footer. Once we edit that site-wide footer, our aim is to use a dynamic tag to very easily fetch from our options page what the description of the site is. So here, we're going to select that. And inside of here, inside of dynamic tags, again, we're going to select dynamic tags. Inside of here, instead of selecting custom field as we did before, we're going to select here option. And when we select option, we can then select site description, which is inside of additional site settings. And this makes complete sense. And now you can see it fetches this very easily inside of here. You can see disk showing you that this is a different data that's being retrieved here. We can click on publish. And if we come to the front end here, you're going to have this appear every single where that it appears inside of our footer. So let's refresh and you can see it right there. This all makes sense. And I'm absolutely loving what we're discussing here. In fact, this is an excellent sequel for what our next lesson is going to be. In our next lesson, we're going to be building out queries and listings, and you're going to understand how all of this connects together. How queries are essential in building out your WordPress website, how listings help you to do things in a way that is not static but dynamic, and how dynamic tags help us to connect all of this together. This right here brings us to the end of this lesson. I hope you've benefited quite a ton from what we've discussed in this lesson, and I hope to read your comments in the comment section below telling me what you benefited from it. Please be sure to leave a like on this video as it will help this video to get to more and more people. My name remains Tobi Salami, and until I see you in the next lesson, you know how it is, right? Stay dynamic.